Live on Facebook in Miami from Talem Home Care. This is Michelle Oliver, and I am so excited today to be here with Chris Carter from Talem Home Care and Rochelle Clarke from Catholic Hospice in Miami. And Talem Home Care, in an effort to really provide some value, some education and support to our community, we are interviewing local professionals and service providers in the area of senior care. And today we have some amazing people you're going to really enjoy hearing from. Again, this is Chris Carter from Talem Home Care. And Chris, would you mind starting us off here and just sharing a little bit about your background, why you're doing what you're doing, and exactly what are you doing? That would be wonderful. Just unmute yourself and share with us.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So I've been in the healthcare industry in some shape or fashion for the last 20 plus years. My early part of my career was respiratory. I dealt with physicians, pulmonologists, cardiologists, helped with disease management programs, really helped to drive outcomes for our sick people in the community. I came to Talem Home Care as an administrator and became national account manager for Talem. I'm very, very passionate about education and providing our families with the resources they need to be successful in the home. So many times in healthcare, we're, as a family that doesn't have all the information they need, we're so reactive to situations and so unaware of the things out there that we can utilize and help to service them and really help that family through a really struggling time in their life. So that's something that I'm very, very passionate about. And in my 2 years here, I mean, I've learned and seen so many things and came across so many different situations and people that I'm continuing to learn and grow and really understand everything that is available out there. Whether it be hospice, home health, podiatry, I mean, pet therapy. I mean, there's just so many little things we can do to ease the suffering of our loved ones. And I think it's truly important to just continue education and collaboration. So.
Chris, thank you so much. You truly are singly the most committed person in this space that I have ever encountered. And this is a huge reason that we're doing these interviews today. Actually, the more value, the more support, the more awareness that we can spread in the community. I love what you said about the reaction, right? And I think anybody that has been through dealing with, and it could be senior care, it could be something else, right? Any kind of health issue, it's just so different when you're in the middle of it than when you're watching other people go through this. So I really appreciate your heart, your commitment, and the fact that you have initiated these interviews. So thank you so much. Rochelle, I'm going to unmute you and would love to hear from you as well.
Hi, so I'm Rochelle Clarke. I'm the Director of Organizational Integration and Patient Experience here in Miami with Catholic Hospice. I did not start off my career in healthcare. I started off my career in hospitality, where I had a desire to shift and change someone's experience and make sure that when they walked away from that experience, they were walking away feeling like, oh my goodness, I've got to tell more people about this experience that I've had. Throughout the course of my life, I had several personal reasons that made me want to delve more into healthcare. And so I went back to school. I pursued a master's in marriage and family therapy, PhD in marriage and family therapy, and started working in the field of hospice about 7 years ago. I started off as a bereavement counselor, so I was giving direct patient care to families who were exhibiting signs of complicated grief, and for patients that were experiencing anticipatory grief. Then I moved up and took a supervisory role where I oversaw the bereavement department, along with a camp that we have, Camp Aaron, for children 6 to 17 years of age that experienced the death of a loved one. And about 3 years ago, I took on the administrator type of role, our administrative role rather, where I'm working exclusively with our psychosocial spiritual team and providing sensitivity around what it means to face a terminal illness and how families can benefit from speaking to someone, especially to reduce things like caregiver burnout and caregiver stress.
Rochelle, that is so amazing. The vastness that you are covering, all the pieces of this. And I'm not going to monopolize the conversation because I want Chris to lead this, but truly hospitality meets healthcare. That's what we need. It's like really, truly, I know it sounds cliche, but putting the heart and the spirit into healthcare, that is what is missing. So it's interesting that we have some people on the Talem staff in Miami that also are bringing that spirit of hospitality. So I'm really, really excited to hear that. And it shows in everything that you've shared. And I'm going to mute myself now and open the floor to Chris. And if you guys just kind of keep an eye on your mics, if I mute you, it's because there's feedback, and then you can just unmute as he asks you questions and you answer, okay? So Chris, I'm opening the floor to you to just ask some questions so we can learn more about Rochelle and her services. Thank you, Rochelle.
So Rochelle, when we talked last time, you were telling me about like a bunch of different programs and things that you offer to your families. Could you kind of elaborate on those services? Because some of the things you said were like above and beyond what I have heard.
Okay, so incorporating that hospitality and mentality, and also incorporating family therapy, where it's that systems thinking, where you're looking at the whole person and all aspects of that person and how their influence and their perceptions and experiences and exchanges. We offer services that really take care of the whole person. So of course we have a dedicated team of physicians who are there to attend to the physiological needs of the patient. We also have nurses that really help to monitor the pain and symptoms, medications, and they're really the eyes and ears of everything. Our hospice aides assist with like the daily grooming. As you know, as someone starts to decline, their ADLs become very difficult. And so we want to make sure that we're giving them as much independence as they can get. We also have our pharmacists that we work in tandem with, just to make sure that if there's any medication formularies or anything like that that needs to be changed, updated, we're able to get that out to the patient and their loved ones to be able to administer. We have our social workers, and our social workers are phenomenal at giving resources and really going out into the community and assessing what this individual's needs are and connecting them to those needs. We have our music therapists, who are dynamic individuals that are board certified, that utilize music as a way to help families connect. Oftentimes when someone has Alzheimer's dementia, family members will say, gosh, they're almost like a shell of themselves. I would do anything just to be able to have one more memory. And what we found fascinating is when you have a music therapist there, through music, a person who otherwise was nonverbal is able to participate in a song. And just for a brief moment, that family gets to share in an experience again. We have our chaplains, and our chaplains meet patients wherever they are in their journey. It's not for anyone to indoctrinate someone else, but it's for us to say, where are you in your journey, and how might our conversations be helpful and useful, so that when you get to that time, we know that when you take your last breath, it's one where you're at peace. We have our veterans program. We honor vets, and so we have people in the community who have volunteered to to be there. We found that when a veteran is going through a lot, when they have another veteran at their side, they're able to open up much more. And so we do these pinning ceremonies where everybody gets together. We encourage the family and friends to get together, and we just honor their service. Oftentimes, when you become a patient, unfortunately, you take on that role. And so we like to expand everybody's role to remember that this is not just a patient with an illness. You know, if you're a veteran, you served, we want to go ahead and we want to honor you. We also have our Pet Peace of Mind program, and that's not pet therapy. It's because some of our families have, or some of our patients have furry loved ones. And I know how near and dear my pets have been to me throughout the course of my life. And so the last thing we want someone to worry about is where that furry loved one is going to be placed when they pass away. So we try to really connect them with the person who we found to adopt their loved one, so that when they transition, that's one less thing that they have to worry about. And then we have our volunteer services. So we have volunteers who are going out in the community, and whether that's advocating for us, whether that's helping us to send out bereavement letters, or whether that is just being at the patient's bedside. This last year has been a little bit difficult. However, in a lot of our facilities, if someone is hospice appropriate, they're making exceptions. So we want to be there to give, you know, an extra level of care. And then our bereavement. And so what's really cool about Catholic Hospice is their advocacy with mental health, and their understanding that true bereavement starts when someone gets a diagnosis, right? You get the diagnosis and all of a sudden the world in which you knew before isn't the same. And how do you maneuver through this world? And so when we find that patients and families are struggling with their impending death or illness progression, we want to make sure that we have trained clinical professionals that are there to walk them through that journey. So we really try to make sure that our programs and our team is able to meet the dynamic needs of a person.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Rochelle. Another question I get asked all the time by families is, when should a person consider hospice? I know there's a lot of old school thinking and a lot of fear and a lot of things emotionally that families go through. And, you know, I think one thing I would like to learn more about, just from not only from a clinical perspective, but just, you know, understanding like the value that you just said that you bring, which I think is fantastic. You know, when should a family start considering hospice?
So Chris, as an advocate, right, I'm going to say that everybody throughout the lifespan should be considering hospice. Everyone should be considering that each day that we're living, there's a possibility that something could change, or that as we're living, we're going to get older and perhaps we are going to need hospice services. It's always better to have the conversation before you're actually in the conversation, before the actual conversation becomes something that's inevitable. However, the consideration for hospice should be given once a person gets a diagnosis of 6 months or less to live, given the natural trajectory of their illness, right? So we're not saying that you're definitely going to have, you're definitely going to pass away. What we're saying is, given the natural progression of your illness, people at this stage typically have 6 months or less to live. And when you're getting that news, it's so difficult, as I talked about before, for the family to comprehend, for the patient to comprehend. We live in a society, you know, where we're always trying to promote health and wellness. We're trying to promote anti-aging. We're trying to promote, you know, just living your best life. And so when someone tells you something like, you know what, you have 6 months or less, how are you processing all of that? In order to really take advantage of the hospice benefit, to me, it's almost so much nicer to know that you come onto the service right as you get the diagnosis. And then you have all these people who are caring for you, who are taking into consideration your wishes. And so you still have some sort of independence, autonomy, and your voice is still heard if you come onto the service as soon as you get the diagnosis.
What are some of the common objections you hear from families that might be fearful of accepting hospice services?
You know, there's a lot of myths, right, about hospice. So if you bring your family member onto hospice, or if I decide to go on hospice, you're not going to give me anything and you just want me to die. And I'm like, no, that's not what we want you to do. We actually want you to gain from this experience, because now that there's a quantity or your life has had a quantifiable number at this time, we can still impact your quality of life. So that's a big thing. The misconception that once you come onto hospice, it means you're going to die. We're going to get rid of all your services. Here in South Florida, one of the big things that are like a pushback for us is the use of some of the medication for pain and symptom management. So it takes a lot for people to adjust, right, to different types of pain. And pain is something that's subjective. I often tell people, I don't know what it's like for anybody else, but I know if I've had an earache or if I've had a toothache, those are like the most annoying aches and pains I could ever experience. And I remembered speaking with a patient one time whose family did not want anything more than like Tylenol with codeine. And her body was shutting down. And she's like, I could feel my organs dying. She's like, it's worse than your worst toothache or earache. And when I think about that, I just think about how important it is for us to make sure that we're being mindful of what pain is like, how it can affect someone, how it can really impact their quality of life, and what we might want to do in terms of educating ourselves on things like morphine, and how it can be an added value to people. I think something that's happening, and this is national, is getting people to sign on to hospice care. A lot of times, we don't get people on hospice for more than 2 weeks at a time. Well, 2 weeks, you're just getting started, and the person is unfortunately rapidly declining. So then I could see where someone might say, as soon as they went on to hospice, they passed away. Well, that might be the case. However, let's look at all the other factors that were contributing to this. Perhaps if once you got the diagnosis, you came onto the service, you would see that the management of your pain and the symptoms where they are can actually be helpful to you. So I think that those are some of the hurdles that we need to overcome.
That is spot on, Rochelle, because so many times I've had clients who start with hospice, and as you indicated, I mean, it's like the last week or two of life. How do you see hospice evolving moving forward, especially educating physicians, I mean, in hospital systems as to how do we get these people appropriately put on hospice so they're not going through a ton of pain and suffering, and really getting them to the point where they can be, what's the word I'm trying to use, where they can actually be successful in their hospice experience without being reactive to the situation and being put on the last week. How do you see the role of hospice evolving with physicians and with even community resources to really better that patient experience?
Yeah, so I see hospice as true advocates, right, for that total care and that continuum of care, right? So right now we talk about patient experience. That's like a buzz word going around in healthcare right now. And so in the realm of patient experience, any opportunity that we have to really partner with local healthcare facilities, we try to let them know through presentations or trainings, what are some of these benefits? We're not going to take your patient away from you. In fact, we're going to work alongside you. We can be your eyes and ears so that the patient can be comfortable in whatever setting they call home, and they're able to go ahead and receive some of the services. So for us, presentations and just awareness is really important. I know that, there's lots of challenges happening in healthcare, right? Things are always changing, parts are always moving. And so letting physicians know that we can be helpful to the patients and really be there to help maneuver them through this very difficult process by keeping them in wherever they call home has been something that's been really helpful to us as we go out and about and really talk about hospice. Chris, in our conversation, I mentioned to you that I'm also a professor at one of the universities here. And so I teach upcoming physicians or healthcare providers about continuum of care and how important it is at each life cycle or each life stage to be able to have difficult conversations, whatever that it is. We've also partnered with different hospitals so that we can do training for physicians on how do we have these conversations. Oftentimes, it doesn't mean that you're not a great physician. It doesn't mean that you haven't done all that you possibly could do. It just means that it's this person's time. And as difficult as that is for you, the physician, to really conceptualize, it must be really difficult, especially if you've had an ongoing relationship with a patient and a family, to be able to tell them that news. So how do we break it to them in a way that they see that you love and trust them? They're guided from a place of love, and you know that partnering with us is just going to, at the end of the day, make sure that they're receiving the care that you would have provided to them should they have continued on a curative path. So just being really proactive, getting out in the community, networking, making sure that we're listening to what the needs are that are preventing healthcare providers from talking about hospice, and being true advocates of care. I really feel like the great thing about hospice is that we can really be the benchmark for building this sort of comprehensive family-centered, care delivery. And so I think that a lot of other areas have a lot to learn from us in this regard.
That's spot on, Rochelle. And one of the things I'd like to add to that too is in our field, in the home care field, I mean, we deal with people from all different situations and all different needs. And one of the things that we're very passionate here at Talem about is connecting people with the right services at the right time. Okay. Can you, and this will be my final question because I know we've gone a little long and I don't want to tie you up, but when do you guys utilize additional supports for someone who is on hospice? Like, because you have a lot of family dynamics, people are working, they have children, they're trying to be there for their mom, their dad. When would you engage, or how does that work from a hospice perspective?
My apologies. How, from a hospice perspective, do we engage outside assistance by way of home care? Was that your question?
Yes, like you guys have to analyze overall need, obviously, in the situations within the family. When would you go and utilize like additional services, whether it be, if someone is of a different faith and you had to get a different chaplain in, or if you needed supportive home care or additional support for the family, what would that look like for your team?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for my team, let me speak specifically with how we would partner with you guys. The first thing that's going to happen is our social worker is going to go in and he is going to assess the needs of the individual patient as well as their family members. We understand that home care is invaluable. Like I said before, when a person is slowly losing their ADLs or their ability to perform just activities of daily living, it can be overwhelming. And so if we recognize that this is really playing a toll on the person, and it's also contributing to other psychosocial declines, then we would start to reach out and partner. We know that over time, things become difficult, like taking a shower, getting something to eat. And so home care really helps us to have the eyes and ears. Like I said, our hospice aides do that, but they do it an hour or two each day. Partnering with someone like in the home care setting allows us to be able to develop that relationship with trusted partners. It allows us to see exactly what's happening with the family. That person can now help us because we're working together, and what has this family or patient identified as things that are really important to them. And what we found is when we're working with companies that provide that home health, that they're able to create that environment and be an added value to us because they're actually seeing the decline. And so we don't have to wait. As soon as they're seeing something, they contact us, and then we're able to go ahead and make sure that the person is being cared for. It also helps the family to know that they have people that are in the home that's caring for them. And so for me, or for us, once we evaluate that there is a need, we act really quickly. And then with whomever we partner with, we just want to make sure that there's open communication so that the biopsychosocial, spiritual needs of the individual is met at all times.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head again, Rochelle, because I think that communication, especially as we work with different partners in our communities, I mean, that communication is so key and important because communication drives success and outcomes, in my opinion. So I'm a true believer that you cannot over communicate. So one last thing for you. What do you see as the strongest values of your organization?
I'm sorry, it was taking me a while. Our organization is really rooted in making sure that people, regardless of what their faith is, that their intention is done with their faith in mind. And so what I love about it is that, our mission is to make sure that we are providing healthcare to people who are in need. And so by doing that, we're minimizing human suffering. We're really trying to make sure we're getting people to that wholeness and just nurturing their relationship with whomever they feel is a creator or is their creator, because at end of life, you start to question things. Afterlife, you question your values, your morals, lots of different things. But our core value, I think that dignity, it's dignity, commitment, excellence, and stewardship. And I think dignity is the one that stands out to me the most. I think at any stage of a person's life, they should have dignity. We should honor, we should respect, we should advocate, and we should ensure that whatever their wishes are, as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, we're able to do that for them. So the core value that I hold near and dear is dignity.
I appreciate that, Rochelle. And I think that, your passion, our passion, I think is obviously to create a better environment and better care for our aging population. I think there's so many things we can do and create and nourish to really move the needle forward, in the future and provide better care and better ways to do things and always look outside the box to create solutions. I think that was fantastic. So I want to thank you so much again for your time today, Rochelle. I really appreciate what you guys do, and thank you so much for being on, and hopefully you'll be a guest again.
Chris, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope that your viewers will be able to learn something about hospice and kind of reduce some of those myths. And Michelle, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was so nice getting to know you today.
Yes, and both of you, I think this is such an important conversation to have. I just value both of you so much. My personal experience, I lost my mother 2.5 weeks ago. And I will tell you that hospice it takes a village, right? And hospice made all the difference in the world for us. And the word that you wrapped this up with, Rochelle, which is dignity, that is how I was able to celebrate with my mother the end of her life, because she was permitted to leave with dignity. That is absolutely the most empowering thing. So I am so kind of taking this at a more personal level today. And I just appreciate the contribution that both of you are bringing to the table. And it really is about working together. That you both mentioned communication. I wrote that down on my pad here because I thought, that is the thing that made it work for us, was the communication and everyone working together to the same end. So really appreciate you both. Rochelle, you are so amazing. And I do hope to have the opportunity to speak with you again further. And Chris, thank you as well. Do either of you have any parting comments before we say goodbye temporarily? We'll come back again.
Again, I just want to thank Rochelle and her team. I truly believe you guys are very genuine in what you're doing. I think you're very passionate. Rochelle, when we met that day, you and I really were just kind of back and forth. And, I could have sat and talked for 4 or 5 hours with you. It would have been amazing. But, it's very, in my opinion, and I've met lots of people in my career. It's very nice and refreshing to see someone who's genuinely passionate about what you do. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Chris, for your kind words. And Michelle, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing with us about your hospice experience. So if there's anything that I can do or my team can do for you or your family to help support you throughout the next couple months, please feel free to give me a call. Thank you, guys.
That is so kind of you and generous. And we're just thank you. But let's go out there and share this and serve the community and provide the best quality of life that we can for everyone that we encounter. And we will be back again. So for now, goodbye, everyone. Make it a wonderful day. Do something amazing for someone else. And that always makes it a better day for us as well. So thank you and goodbye.